So guys, I'm joined by Rocco DeAngelis, which means what? Heaven
Sent.
Heaven
of the
sent.
angels.
Of the Angels. Okay, great. And he is going for Colton, the lower house,
Yep.
for One Nation. So I'm excited to have a lower house candidate here today. How's everything going?
It's going well.
Yeah.
We'd like to be able to add up everything that's being promised by the Labor Party to see how that's going to bust the budget. But it's a little bit frustrating, but it's good apart from that. People are loving us and really wishing us well. A lot of people want us to do well and represent them.
So what's it like in Colton? Like, do you feel a sense of connection, and do you feel like the people really want a difference in terms of just a typical Labor Liberal? Do you feel like there's opportunity in Colton to really get through to them?
Yeah, I think so. It's currently held by a Liberal member. The incumbent is a Liberal gentleman who's been there now for 2 terms and served the community well, very well liked. But Labor is very keen to regain that seat.
Yep.
And I feel that what's happening in our area is there's so much push for high density and development and building without having done the proper planning and urban planning, I mean. And there's traffic everywhere. There's so much more development to come, and people are struggling.
So like sardines in there, are they?
Yeah, it's horrendous.
So they don't have any like council protection in regards to subdevelopments and stuff like that?
Look, I think both parties over the years, but particularly the current government, but even from the previous government's time, they started changing to Plan SA. That is a portal which effectively took a lot of power away from local councils, and the state now is in charge, particularly of arterial roads, so Grange, Henley, Findon. They kind of control how it works at the state planning.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of, it was them or it was them when you're talking to council or state. And so things get through that should never have passed, and the council can't do anything, and the state planning authority can't really do anything.
Yeah.
But the citizens end up with traffic jams, no parking on the streets. I don't think we can connect any more sewerage where we live.
Yeah.
And yet they're building hundreds and hundreds of new houses.
So for the people of Colton, what areas are that? So people, like for the simple folk, who don't know anything about politics, but they want to know, what's Colton?
So Colton is central western suburbs. So basically Grange down to West Beach and all the way back around the airport, Lockleys, Flinders Park, Findon, Kidman Park, and then back to Grange kind of.
So you guys have the sand issue then? I remember I was doing some stuff about the sand there.
Yeah,
pipes, they stopped building the pipes and they want to build the pipes, and then, you know.
Yeah, it's a real big issue.
Yeah.
I'm a western suburbs boy from always. I lived overseas after I graduated uni and worked around. But I was at a function on Sunday. It was Save the Sands, because the natural erosion from West Beach, where literal drift, it just moves up. But we don't have a proper plan to move it back down. And the worst thing is the Torrens outlet at West Beach gets mined. So we lose that sand and it gets put elsewhere. And then they fill it with quarry sand. Yeah,
I saw the disgusting sand.
And that's horrendous. It doesn't compact, so the surf lifesavers can't use vehicles across the beach or run. And
the algae stuff with the minerals in the water.
Whilst that's not 100% easy to prove, there's a lot of evidence that it could be a cause.
Yeah, well, I had David Spears on recently because he was very passionate about the algae. Like his whole platform was that, and he was saying that even a little bit, even it's like 0.2%, can make a huge difference in terms of algae. So you're dumping in all this shitty sand there, it's going to cause problems. You know?
Yeah, and look, a lot of people have also found that desalination work.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it.
Yeah. Yeah, the desal, well, all of it adds up. It's all like, yes, you have the River Murray, the dumping of the nutrients, the flooding, you have the desal, you have the dumping of sand, you have all these issues that all come together to make a big issue.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean one issue is less than the other. They're all important. They're all jigsaw puzzles. They're all pieces of the puzzle that need to be considered.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay. So I know kind of exactly the kind of area that, I mean, that's a huge impact. It's been because the Liberal government promised to build these pipes there. And then the Labor government came and said, we can't afford to build the pipes. Is that what happened?
And the truth is the Labor government wants to basically dig up the sand where it's ended up and barge it back.
Yeah.
And that's a lot more disruptive.
Yeah,
it's an ongoing it's an ongoing cost.
Yeah.
A pipeline would be more efficient.
Yeah.
And it would be like a natural way to replenish.
Yeah.
And it works quite well. It also has a long-term cost that's less than continuously.
Yeah, it's infrastructure.
Yeah. But you've got to ask yourself, why does the Labor government not support the probably more efficient, scientifically based answer, which is the pipeline? And it's a little bit of, it costs a lot more, and there's a lot more work and construction style work in having to keep moving sand back in.
Yeah.
And we're not sure, because we actually met with the mayor a few weeks ago, and we're not sure that they're not going to dump more quarry sand there.
Yeah, well, Labor Party is the party of short term. We'll fix everything short term and worry about long term later.
Yeah.
You know?
But it will cost more money as well.
Of course.
And it won't be a permanent solution.
Yeah, and that's kind of another issue I'm facing with the Labor Party is like there's always, they only care about the today, they never think about the future, and then even the budget, the way they've blown the budget, $5 billion a year, leading up to $50 billion by 2028. Who's going to pay for that in the future? It's going to be
my kids that maybe aren't born yet, but will be paying for it. Because look, my experience with running budgets, P&Ls, is vast, because I used to do that. I was a senior director for many large corporations all over the world. We wouldn't keep our jobs if we did what the current government is doing here. We wouldn't get our bonuses, but we're not sure we'd keep our jobs, because you've put us in a debt that is hard to justify. And it's a little bit, we're building castles on the sand. And it makes no sense, because a lot of the things we've built, and I love to talk about the North-South corridor, because everybody thinks that's a wonderful project, but it cost $15.4 billion, which we still have to see realised at that cost, because it will probably blow out, as will the timeline, which is still 6 years away. But all that money spent on infrastructure, on the biggest possible project we've ever done, means that we haven't spent infrastructure on all of the suburbs where we're infilling so heavily. So it would have made sense to me, just basic back of an envelope thinking, that if you're going to infill the heck out of South Australia with housing, high density, you need to make sure you've got enough sewerage, roads, parking, all the things that you need for proper living, so that you're not destroying people's life or living standards. Spend the money where you need it, then build the high density so that everything's ready to go. Then we can worry about something that costs $15.4 billion, which is 7 times the Royal Adelaide Hospital, which was the third most expensive building in the world in its time. So it makes no sense to me why we'd build these monuments just to make somebody happy. Now, who is that person or people who...
I guess the thing is, I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate here. Australia has one of the biggest we have $4 trillion of super just sitting there. Money's sitting there, and economists use this money to not only, even our government and all these people who run these funds, they use this money to just basically buy US stocks. And our money sits there in stocks. Take that $4 trillion and build a great nation.
100%.
Build a super nation. Why not? Yes, you're right. We shouldn't have to. We should be focused on the sewage, the local stuff, get the infrastructure going. But why not have massive super projects like get these tunnels going, terraform the middle of Australia,
100%.
Build more cities,
big
build
trains,
speed
fast
rail.
trains.
Yeah, fast trains.
100%. Put people back into the rural areas.
But instead, our $4 trillion of super is just sitting there doing nothing.
100%. I couldn't agree more.
So that I like the idea of it. So I agree with you, but also we do need when they built the Sydney Harbour Bridge, for example, it was extremely expensive, and I think only 10 cars or something used it for the first few years. It was hardly anyone using it. Now they had to build more lanes because it's so damn busy.
Absolutely. I mean, I used to live in Sydney. I can vouch for it. But mine is a twofold, very simplistic argument. I'm running for Colton, so I represent the central western suburbs. So if my people can't get onto Grange Road, Findon Road of a morning to take their kids to school.
Is that what you're saying? So you talk to the people, they're saying that
absolutely.
It's cooked, there's no way.
Findon Road is becoming a car park. And it's only going to become bigger. And you can't retro plan urban planning. So if you haven't built extra lanes or parking lanes or left turns where you need them or a roundabout or traffic lights that are different, a lot of this stuff cannot be retrofitted. It just can't be done. So what I'm saying is, we need houses. So we need 2 things for that to happen. One, you got to bring the right migrants in that have the skills. Because I had somebody from the Master Builders Association call me and say, We're getting people from overseas who say they have the qualifications. They come to us, we cannot certify them because they really aren't qualified, right? So you need the right people so we can build more houses faster. But before you build those houses, you have to have the infrastructure. You can't just make us into a ghetto. I mean...
Is that what it feels like in Colton?
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of going to get there for a reason, because a lot of that area, not the beach suburbs part of it, you know, the Henley Beach, Granger.
Yeah.
But when you step a couple of
blocks back,
a couple of kilometres back, a kilometre back, you start getting what used to be market gardens. So Fulham Gardens, for example, still has a ton of property that's not developed, and we still have a ton of property that will be bulldozed because it's old or commercial, and it will have a lot more high density. So it's not just what's happened, which is already very large, there's big projects, it's what's coming.
Yeah.
And if we can't get people to stop and build the infrastructure, it will be totally unlivable, and it cannot be fixed afterwards.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I love what you're saying with the infrastructure. I want us to build fast trains. I want us to use that super money, because that's how it used to be.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be.
For the nation.
Right?
Yeah.
Nation building projects. Love it. And also, let's get our, the fast trains is one that I love. I love trains, trams.
Yeah,
I think
feel safe with the kangaroos, but to be honest, they cop it enough anyway.
Well, yeah, it's probably and safer for people travelling. And I mean, look at what's happening with semi-trailers now. Will we have diesel to we're a nation that runs on rubber. Yeah. And is that right for us? Is it the smartest way?
No, it's not. The rural communities are suffering because they have all these trucks come through, the dust, the accidents, the dangers of the trucks being all over the roads, especially in the Port Lincoln areas. The trucks cause huge problems there.
Absolutely.
So we do, and they used to have trains through there. That's all been shut down. The trains of Port Lincoln, Eyre Peninsula.
Trains, ferries.
Yeah.
We want this stuff back because it makes sense. It makes sense to have a healthy, vibrant Australia in the cities and in the rural communities. Absolutely.
I say this every single podcast besides the last two, actually. But Australia used to have the same productivity as most European countries in the 1960s. And now we have the same productivity as Mongolia. So we've literally turned into like a third world country in a sense with our productivity levels. Yeah,
and it'll only get worse with people in Victoria like Jacinta Allen promising that you almost want to mandate. She wants to mandate people working from home.
Yeah.
And I'm saying I love working from home when it makes sense, but not everybody can work from home.
Yeah.
A mechanic might be able to come to your home, but he certainly would struggle to work from his home, or
No, I hear
or a bricklayer,
and just the public sector is growing. Like the entire economy is a false economy in a sense. I'm not saying we need to get, it sucks, but you can't have a false economy. You need a true economy in a service-based economy and a false economy, all building at the same time. Millions of immigrants coming in who in 5 to 10 years might not even have jobs because of AI and robotics. So we're going to be left with huge unemployment. We're going to have no infrastructure. We're going to have no homes and a bunch of people who can't find jobs. This country's not looking very good. It's not looking very Australia first, is it?
It's not, but you won't get politicians. The politicians are going to tread really lightly because a lot of people now work for government, local government, state government, federal government, and so on. And so everybody's going to be really scared that they won't vote for that.
They don't want to lose their jobs.
Because they don't want to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
And the truth is, it has to be what the right number is, right? Let's start with the right numbers for immigration. My parents came here in 1965 from the south of Italy. The numbers during the 60s averaged 110,000 per annum. And yet everybody in those days probably thought they were being swamped by Southern Europeans because it was the populate or perish days. It was straight after or around the period where white Australia policy was being abandoned.
Yeah.
So everybody, and I can understand that if you were in Australia in the 1960s and all these people were coming from overseas who were different to you, that you would be a little bit afraid. And I think we have to be sensitive to that as well. So we have to be careful how we integrate people and how many.
Yeah.
But the number that One Nation, and I'm not speaking about One Nation because I'm trying to push that view, even though I believe in it, obviously. But the One Nation number is about 130,000 people. So let's bring migration down to about 130,000 people, which is still higher than it was in the 60s.
Yeah.
And that seemed really high. But at adding 1 million people over 2.5 years, and then you wonder why we don't have houses and there's people homeless and...
Or even the fertility rates. We've got such low fertility rates. Like, we're just forgetting about our own people. Our own people don't even want to have families. Our own women and men don't even want to have young families. They want to wait till they're 35, 40. And by that time, your fertility is gone. It's gone. It's shock.
We've
Then you
seen
need IVF and all these other things. And
We've seen it happen in Europe, right? When
Yeah.
things are so expensive or so difficult, you can't move out of home, you can't buy a house. I know somebody that called me the other day and said, I came to Australia. This person's a very skilled migrant, or on a temporary visa, but runs construction sites here, and said, I was thinking I was doing good at $85,000 a year. Now I have to dip into my savings that he bought from overseas, or he has overseas, $3,000 a month just to survive, because his rent is $750. He's got 2 kids and a wife. And I thought at $85,000, I would be okay. This is him speaking. But he's not. He's now worse off, and he wants to stay here, doesn't want to leave, but he doesn't know how to survive.
Yeah.
Because rents went up $10,500 on average in the last few years.
Yeah, it's crazy. The sweet irony of all this is in this weird world we live in, One Nation is actually the best party for immigrants. Think about it, because why do people come here? Why do people from China and India come here? I'll tell you why. Because their kids have to compete with 10 million students.
Yeah.
Or maybe 5 million, depending on what province or area they're in.
Yeah.
When their kids come here, they might have to compete with 10,000, 100,000.
Yep.
So it's a statistical probability.
Yeah.
So the last thing a Chinese or Indian person wants is to come here and then it become India and China all over again, a huge population. Then the whole point they came here in the first place was to have less competition so their kids had a better chance at a higher wage, better opportunity of life. So the funny thing is, the best way to win over the newly found immigrants who've come to this country is to support One Nation for them. Because the last thing they want to do is come to a country they left to then turn into the same country.
Look.
That's why they came here. That's why my dad came here, to have a better opportunity, because Greece at the time was having its problems.
Yep.
That's why I talked to a lot of Christian Indians, for example. I had Deepa on today, and she said, yeah, we came here because the competition is much less.
Yep.
It's way less than what it is in India. You have to compete against millions of people. So it's always for family. It's always for kids to have better opportunities.
Yep.
And that's all been taken away from us. And you mentioned before, you have a history of the South Africa connection.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's an important topic to talk about, because from what I understand, I've worked with some South Africans, and what they've told me is that South Africa used to have a border, used to have military presence. Then the government lost, and the border basically just got let go of. All the military was told to leave, and then anyone in Africa could just come to South Africa now, and the country just got lost after that. And also all these austerity measures
and a lot of xenophobia. The people most at risk in South Africa are black Africans from other African nations.
Yeah.
So we had a plumber who was from Zimbabwe, and when he came to fix something, because he was very good, very skilled, when he came to our house in South Africa, in Durban, to fix something, he was fearing for his life. In fact, I'd always drive him back to where he lived, because he was afraid that when he spoke the local language, the Zulu language, his accent wasn't quite right. They'd pick it out and beat him up.
Really?
Because he wasn't a local.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we left, because our children, if we'd stayed there, wouldn't have had a future. I couldn't get a job, and I have a 5-star resume with very, very blue chip companies all over the world, and I couldn't be hired because I was the wrong color.
So how do people from British background or European background survive in South Africa now? Like, how is it are they just wealthy, like super wealthy enough to afford like the electric fences and all this stuff? Like, how is it still livable for them?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of economies running in parallel, and then there's levels of different economies. So if you run your own business, you've run your own business for a while, and you're set up, and you have connections with the government,
It's like protection almost.
It's everything can work for you.
It's like gang-related kind of activity.
Well, it's not exactly legit. Yeah,
okay, so it's a bit more corrupt.
There's a lot of corruption.
So the government has to succumb to corruption to survive. So if you want to survive that, you have to basically buy your tickets.
If you want to have a business that works, and I won't say that this is 100% of the cases, but everything I saw, someone has to know someone who then knows somebody.
Yeah, okay.
To get you the contracts.
Yeah, okay. Because that's kind of my fear. Like, you talk about Rhodesia, South Africa. There's a lot of extremists out there who want to like kind of fast track the destruction of Australia so people can step in and try and fix it. But if you let that happen too much, like what we saw in Rhodesia and South Africa, the bleed can't stop. And the bleed turns into a fatal wound, and the country's gone forever. Do you think Australia can have a similar destiny if we don't watch out?
I think Australia runs a risk of becoming like America, where half the people hate the other half.
Yeah.
And that is my biggest fear. And if the Labor government and the Greens don't stop what they're doing, which is continuously searching for new oppressed to then band together and fight the common oppressors, which is us, anyone with a conservative thought process, I think we're going to end up like America, where 50% of the people hate the other 50%.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest fear. Because I think once we're there, I don't know how America's going to fix itself.
Yeah. So you're more worried about that serious divide.
Yeah. Because I see it already. And you know how I see it? When I wear an orange One Nation t-shirt, or when I do a post and bots and trolls, or I hope it's bots and trolls, because if it's real people saying the horrendous things that they say to One Nation people online, I am, as a Christian man, horrified.
Yeah. It is terrifying. Look, it's hard to tell. Sometimes they are bots, but sometimes they're not, and that kind of leaves you in a space of uneasiness.
Yeah, because people are prepared to say the most horrendous things. I mean, one of our young candidates who was a first campaign, basically really struggled the other week because she was in a local suburb on the high street having coffee with a friend and got abused for being a racist. I mean, these people don't know.
Yeah, they don't know what real racism looks like.
They don't understand.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because she had her call flute and was having a picture with her best friend who's Cambodian and his Vietnamese wife.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so that's what we get. We get the comments about you're a racist, something about Gina Rinehart's plane, and then...
I don't think this is what my warning to the people of South Australia, especially the older and even my age, maybe the 20 to 25 to 30 plus, right? The young guys and girls coming in don't actually care about being called racist anymore. They don't care about being labelled anything.
Yeah.
They don't care. They don't even care about World War II. They don't care about history. They don't care about nothing. They just look around and their country's cooked and they're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So that is going to wear off. Like even now, I'd say being called a racist doesn't really have the same impact. Being I get called a Nazi all the time because I like British culture. So I get called a Nazi for that.
Yeah.
So that starts to wear off to the point where I don't think the younger generation actually even care anymore. Like you could literally call them Nazis, this, that, and they just will laugh it off. So I don't think the left realizes what they're about to have to take on soon because it's going to get worse and worse.
Well, my boys, I've got a 10, 15, 16-year-old. You know, the 15 and 16-year-old who are a 16-year-old who are at high school continuously reassure me and their mother that things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? I said, look, Dad, Mum, these woke kids at school, we don't listen to them. We're not interested in them.
Yeah.
All our mates have conservative views. And I'm like, thank the Lord, we can breathe a little bit, you know?
Yeah, there's like a hope in the younger generation.
There's a hope that they have finally... But again, when you have a country... And this is both parties in the past, because the ABC didn't just become the ABC when Anthony Albanese took charge, right?
Yeah.
They've been the ABC for quite a while.
Yeah, slowly with their little tentacles.
Do you know what I mean? Pushing things...
Trust me, my first fight was the ABC Adelaide. They literally tried to get my account shut down. And I had to block them. I had one of the producers in Sydney message me saying, "Don't ever do that again," because I used one of their photos for a smoking ceremony. I was promoting Aboriginal smoking ceremonies, and they got upset with me because I used one of their photos. They tried to shut me down, copyright strike me.
Well, because you're obviously a proponent of a conservative point of view.
Yeah. Well, but it wasn't even that conservative back then. It's ridiculous. I'm saying, but my point is, the ABC are a vicious machine to the point where I had to block them because I was like, I don't want to deal with your stuff anymore.
And it's not just the ABC. And again, what I'm saying is,
Guardian,
the media, but also universities in Australia are a huge threat.
Yeah.
And so what happens is young people who make it through high school and aren't too impacted by the indoctrination then have to go to university, where they have to complete a course where it happened to people I know, where they were shocked at what they had to agree to
pass it.
So what they had to do was they had to agree that people had massacred Indigenous people. They had to agree that the state had stolen from and killed Indigenous people.
Like white guilt kind of stuff.
And you have to agree to that, but that's got nothing to do with their degree. And I don't think it's something that you have to be forced to complete and agree to before you can
Well, it's the same in corporate Australia.
Yeah.
If you want to get a job in corporate Australia, you have to like play this safe line.
Absolutely.
And literally pretend you're not a conservative. There's so many people in corporate Australia and in universities who are very conservative but have to keep their mouth shut, otherwise they'll get failed or they'll lose their ability to even study. So yeah, it's ridiculous. I think the young kids are waking up and there is hope there. And that's why the under-16s ban was so big. You notice they banned every platform but Blue Sky. And they realise now, because the young kids are waking up, that's why they did the under-16s ban, because they know the young kids are not stupid anymore. So we've got to ban them from social media because they're learning too smart. They're getting too smart for us. So I don't know, what do you think about this under-16s ban? Do you think One Nation will ever try and reel back the under-16s ban at some point on the macro level?
Look, what you mean, remove it?
Because the Premier here was talking so like, oh, look, I started this whole thing. I'm the reason why the under-16s ban was happening. You know, he was acting all proud about that.
But then he's opened a TikTok account recently, which is the domain of where 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds kind of spend a lot of their evenings. They don't watch TV. I was saying asking a youngster, so what are you watching on TV? Anything? Oh no, I just watch TikTok at night. I just scroll my phone. I wasn't judging, but I'm saying...
The TV slop. It's so much slop on there.
But maybe the social media spending by the government and the marketing spending...
It's 200 million, Ashton Hearn told me recently, $200 million the Labor government spent. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I think their budget on social media is about $500,000.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So...
I mean, more than that, surely. $500,000 seems like they're not spending enough.
Just on social media ads.
Oh, on ads. Oh, just the ads.
Just
okay.
Pushing. Because social media is free, but you've got to you got to push it and post it. And so.
Okay, wow.
And so what I'm asking is, there's a social media ban, but what you're doing is promoting stuff to youngsters because you want to get them in early, and then...
Yeah, well, that's what they do for the public school system as well. The Albanese said recently, I love the public schools because you don't have fascists and right-wingers and conservatives in there.
Yeah.
So there's even the messaging around... I mean, they're just admitting to everyone that public schools are a factory to make left-leaning woke kids and indoctrinate them in this, Labor Greens kind of attitude as they grow older. So they're kind of poisoning our kids.
Yeah, look, I mean...
And they can get away with it. They can poison our kids and get away with it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, when you're a One Nation person, you get people that you have to help sometimes to cope with what they've just experienced. So I was in Europe last year, and I got a phone call from a lady in South Australia whose son had been to school and taken a project that he was asked to complete, like a little clay plasticine village of rural Australia a few hundred years ago.
Yeah.
So all these kids made these little models, took them to school, the teacher put them on the ground and then stomped on every one of them and said that's what it feels like, what it would have felt like if you were an Indigenous person and the colonialists came and just destroyed everything. These were kids in primary school.
Damn.
Her son was shocked, horrified, felt, and I believe he was on the spectrum.
Yeah.
So this lady was beside herself. And the first thing she did was find her local One Nation person, which I'm not even a local person, but she found me and called me. And I spent, I don't know how long on the phone.
Was this recent?
This was last year, about 8 months ago. 6 months ago. No, not even. November last year.
Do you know what school? Was it a public or private?
It was a public school in the country, or just in the greater metropolitan
outer suburbs, yeah.
And I asked her to write to the school and to copy me, but she never did because I think people are scared.
Yeah, they're scared. Yeah.
Something happened to us because our youngest child, used to go to a Catholic school. He now goes to a public school, and he used to go to a Catholic school. And in that Catholic school, there was a new principal who was quite left-leaning. It's a Catholic school, I remind you.
Crazy, yeah. I heard about the Catholic schools now these days.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, we don't agree with acknowledgements and welcome to countries and all of that stuff. So forget all that.
Yeah.
But what we definitely don't agree with is that if I'm sending my son to a Catholic school for a Christian education, I don't believe it should be intertwined with any other faiths, religion, spirituality. Right? So you can't really try and teach my son in writing that there's a place where saints and God and Jesus meet rainbow serpents.
Yeah.
Because we struggle with that.
Yeah.
So we believe, and in my household, we're a faith-based house.
Yeah.
Faith and family. We run principles, and you know what? My 3 boys, I find that I refer back to teachings, from Jesus that I found helped me when I was a teenager. And I don't think that we're some crazy cult Christian family. We're pretty straight up and down, crazy family of Italian origin.
Yeah.
But I find that, I've always said to people, if Jesus has done anything, if there are any stories in the gospel where you can point to and tell me that Jesus was wrong in the teaching, then I'd love to hear it. Because otherwise, whether you believe he's real or just an avatar, it doesn't matter to me. What matters is that story. Is it story about doing the right thing in the right way?
Yeah. And Jesus' message was quite simple as well. The kingdom of heaven is within you was one of the most strongest things he's ever said. Because the reality is, leave all the politics out of it, leave every nation out of it. We all have a bit of Christ in us. And that's actually the most unifying thing ever.
Absolutely.
There's like the idea of theosis, that we all have a little bit of God inside us. And then if we open our hearts up and we realize that we're all humans, we all want to get along under the teachings of Christ, in terms of looking introspectively inside here and figure out, like a mirror, like when I see you, I see myself.
Yeah.
When we're all connected in that way. And then that kind of...
Do you see yourself as being better looking?
Maybe. But looks maxing now. We can get to looks maxing now. I'm just joking. We can talk about that another time. But my point being is that we can all connect. We can all unify.
Yeah.
And that was kind of Christ's ultimate message. And we lost that. We lost that with politics. We lost that with
Absolutely.
With everything. And now we're left with, okay, now I got to fight everyone. I have to fight everyone. Like, what's the point?
I think part of it is, so first I want to tell you that of my 3 sons, their friends that come to our house and sleep over and eat and drink, they are every colour, race, creed, anything you can imagine.
Yeah.
And we love all their friends. In fact, I just think that, particularly in a world where a lot of the families are broken, a lot of the boys aren't growing up with their dads.
Yeah.
I have a special place in my heart for those kids.
Yeah.
And there are some of my son's friends that come over and they like hanging out with me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
Well,
it's fun. And I don't know if this is about you, but when I was a kid, like I grew up with Greeks, Italians, Indians, and we would all be the most racist people to each other.
That's true.
But it was funny. We're all laughing because it's hilarious. But then what happened was the Karens got involved. The Connie Benarises of this world come in there and go, oh, you can't say that, it's me. And it's like, no, this is how boys we're having banter. Like the art of banter is gone now. And you can't rage bait, banter, all of it. You can't even say anything anymore because you're going to be called all these terrible names or racist this. The guys know we're just joking. And you know what? Yeah, some of them might get upset, but that was part of like the manhood, like the rite of passage as a man.
Yeah.
To be able to deal with a bit of tension. Because think about it, you're a man, right? And you're with your friends. You got to test your friends, because if we're in a war scenario, we're out in a survival situation, and your friends can't handle a banter joke, how are they going to handle a war or a battle, or we're like stuck out in nature somewhere if they can't even handle a joke? So part of manhood is to be able to handle a little bit of friction, a little bit of banter, a little bit of that was part of being a boy and part of being a man. We've lost that. Now everyone's so sensitive. Everyone's so sad. You make one joke, you start crying, and everyone has to get a participation award. Everyone has to be the same gender. Everyone has to be this. It's like, come on. Well, we've lost that masculine manhood.
And I'll play devil's advocate now.
Yeah.
Because I've got boisterous boys.
Mm-hmm.
That's what boisterous boys. There's kind of the root of the word. So we struggle with the fact that they're boys, but they have to apologize for being boys. Yeah. Right? And it's like, I get that they make mistakes, but I have a cousin who's out here from Italy whose 8-year-old son was suspended for a day from primary school for throwing a pencil at a girl that he had a disagreement with in a classroom.
I was I had a crush and I was like, whoa.
Possibly, don't know. So my point is, and there's two sides to this story. Yeah. We've got boys that we have to make sure they understand they don't go too far.
Boundaries, yeah,
right?
Of course.
Because some of the progress that we have made is to be tolerant, is to not just make fun. You know, I remember, I'll never forget, I was a kid coming home from school, and one of my friends who was a little bit more effeminate, he was made fun of, and I couldn't tolerate that. And I tell my boys, you're the guys that stand up against the bullies, not with them.
Yeah.
And it's very important to me because there's that line that you got to judge. You know,
Yeah.
so Andrew Tate goes too far.
Yeah.
But yes, he was useful a little bit.
Yeah.
In making sure that boys had a reference point, which didn't want them to be beta males all the time.
Yeah,
Because,
it's like that banter point.
do you know what I mean?
Which is my point of view. Like, there has to be boundaries. Like, yes, be boyish, but there's a line. Like, if you're going to pick on, like, you know, a kid that can't walk, for example, that's a bit
It's outrageous.
Outrageous, yeah. And women, you know, there's a difference between a boy and a girl. Girl, you know, a boy, especially young teenage men, are strong, very strong, and very overpowering. So you got to have your limits.
Exactly. This happened to us, where one of my teenage boys was. They were a little bit at school. They were a little bit too much, and I was like, "Son, you're a big boy.
Yeah.
You're muscling. You're strong. You're only 15." But that
comes down to education. See, this is my point. My point is, we need banter. We need guys to be bullies to other guys.
Yep.
With boundaries.
Yep.
But when it comes to, there needs to be also an honour and respect when and the right place and right time. That doesn't get taught at schools anymore, though.
Well, it's hard
because now it's like the teaching is you can't be rude to anyone.
Yep.
When it should have been, if you're with the boys, be boys. But if you're with the girls, don't.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's different. But because the woke schools don't want to have any distinguish between, like, for the ultra feminists and for this LGBTQ thing, there's no such thing as boy and girl. It's just we're like this weird creature. Like, we're not.
And my son struggled with it because he said, you know, Dad, at school.
There's a they thems.
Yeah, at school there's all these people that it's almost like they're their own community, and we feel that we don't know how to approach them.
Yeah.
And whatever we do and say is always going to be wrong, and so there's conflict.
Yeah.
And the way that the school deals with conflict is that normally, according to my sons, and according to what I've tried to discern, it kind of comes down harder on the alpha boys.
Yeah.
Because they're alpha males, being alpha males. And in no way would I condone them if I heard that they were making fun or abuse or the wrong language. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
But I also need to protect my sons and everyone else's sons from a world in which we have quotas now for women in parliament, in cabinet, as if it's a badge of honour because you have more women in your cabinet than men or in parliament. And I don't get that.
Well, it's called toxic empathy. Have you heard of toxic empathy
No,
before?
I haven't heard that term, if I'm honest.
So toxic empathy is the idea that they're so empathetic that it's created a society of weakness.
Yeah.
So, back in the day, if my uncle was talking to a microwave, we'd be like, holy shit, we've got to send him up to the psych ward. He's a bit crazy. Now he's talking to the microwave. We've got to make a name for him. We've got to make sure he has more microwaves he can talk to. There's we don't put him in the psych ward. We normalize it. It's called toxic empathy. So same with woke ideologies. If there's kids out there who've been indoctrinated into this woke ideology and then they get picked on because they're acting like wokies, then we can't actually try and straighten them up and say, no, that's, it's not, you're living in fantasy land. It's actually going to go against the objective reality of humanity and you're going to cause a sickness for yourself in the future. You can't say it anymore because it's not empathetic enough. So it's like you're too empathetic sometimes. There has to be a level of tough love. Like the father figure who can say to your kid, no, you've done the wrong thing.
Yep.
Now everyone's doing the right thing. If you want to be a dinosaur, you can be a dinosaur. If you want to be a fairy, you can be a fairy. If you want to be like you're a cat and have kitty litter like you said at schools, then you can be a kitty cat at schools. There needs to be boundaries, there needs to be respect, and there needs to be the idea of critical thought, critical thinking, common sense.
But it's the parents, it's not the kids.
Yeah.
All of this is on the parents.
100%.
Because, there's kids out there, and our kids would wear their mum's high heels for fun.
Yeah.
Is it our then next thought that, if you want to be a girl, you can be a girl?
Yeah.
No, that was not anywhere near my mind or my wife's mind. They just put on a pair of high heels and wanted to wear their mum's necklace or sunglasses or lipstick. I mean, big deal. But the next thing you know is parents that want to live vicariously through their children and convince their children that actually it's okay if you want to be a boy or a girl and that's not your natural gender.
Yeah.
But That's not right.
Well, it's a status thing for the parents because the parents want to be in the cool white crowd.
Absolutely.
So they use their kids as like trophies.
Absolutely.
It's actually disgusting.
It used to be that you had a best friend that was black or gay.
Yeah,
but that's not enough anymore because that's all normalised.
Now you need a black,
right?
woke kid with a horn on their head.
Well, yeah, yeah. Or your, my son's transitioning, or the damage they're doing to people, to kids.
It's selfish, really.
It is, and it's horrendous because that child. Don't talk to them about any of this stuff until they're older.
Yeah, let them make mature decisions as they age. And also, in principle, I actually agree with the under-16s ban. Like, yes, parents should ban their kids from being on their iPads all day, but not the government. It should be the kids. The parents that have to decide.
Because the problem that we have. So it's not that I don't agree with you. It's we need schools for parents.
Yeah.
Right, because parents don't know how to be parents.
Yeah.
And that's because we've destroyed the tightly knit community because it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if mum and dad are working double jobs or two jobs or a job each, whatever, and the only help they can get with their kids is the internet, what do you expect is going to happen?
Yeah.
So we are never going to have kids that are raised with, my uncles and aunties used to give all of us a slap, all the cousins, because we needed as much help as we could get growing up.
So is it like comes back down to lack of community, lack of Christian values in the country? Because before we could just go to church, you talk to your priest, you had the community around you, you'd ask questions, and then you could, we don't have that anymore. Everyone's so disconnected. And
look, it's interesting because we're Christian, but Jewish people, Indian people, Muslim people, the interesting thing is that the last party, and I'm not talking about party, the last political persuasion they should ever embrace is anything from the left. Because those people, and I'll say it again, the Christian people who believe in it, Indians, Muslims, and others, are very deeply traditional and conservative in their values. Yet somehow people are led to believe that they should vote Labor or Greens because they'll protect the Muslims or the Indians, for example, who are the latest addition into Australia, who are very conservative family people.
Yeah.
That they don't actually align with those ultra-left views.
Yeah.
And so my answer to you is, yes, for us, because we're Christian, but an Indian family or a Muslim family that is strongly family-oriented and that has those values, they're also going to struggle in this world, aren't they?
Yeah, see, look, it's hard. See, I'm a bit more staunch. Like, mine a bit more radical. Like, I think if you're going to come to a Christian country, then you better embrace Christianity.
I don't disagree with that.
Like, if I was a Muslim Greek coming to a Christian country, I'd become Christian. Like, it's like if I go to Dubai, I respect Dubai's.
Yeah, no, look, I mean,
if I'm with my wife, she has to wear the thing. Like, I respect the country's.
I hear you.
Heritage. I respect the country's culture. What made that country what it is. If I go in there and try and, oh no, you have to do my thing now, and I'm going to make my own streets, and I'm going to have my own, I don't like that. And I mean that for every religion.
That's easy to agree.
Yeah.
That's easy to agree with.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But I mean that for every religion, not just Islam. I mean, if you're not Christian in a Christian country, I'm like, sorry, mate. Like, that's my line. I'm not saying you have to follow that.
No, and I don't because I don't believe it. Right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm not the most devout person to the Christian faith.
Yeah, of course.
What it means is that I'm okay to coexist with other people.
Yeah,
right?
No, I'm okay with coexisting, but it's just like...
Well, you said something.
Yeah.
You said something in one of your podcasts, which I really liked.
Yeah.
And I'll back it up with something else that I've observed in my years on this earth. So you said something that when people came to this country in the past, they came here for the British rule, for the law of British rule, because it was organised and it worked.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that having lived in many countries all over the world, the places that the British set up are the ones that still run for now.
Well, yeah.
Well, right? Yeah. When you look at South America, for example, or Central America, with all the Spanish or Portuguese speaking areas, they were set up by Spanish and Portuguese. But they're a disaster economically and in a lot of other ways, right? Well, there's a bit of a rebirth in Argentina right now.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing is that the countries that had the greatest amount of prosperity were Australia, Canada, the US, set up by the colonial British system. So something must have been right with those guys.
Well, you're exactly right. I was actually listening to an African preacher, and he was with this other African lady, and they were and she was a bit younger, and she was like saying, "Oh, the colonialists, they screwed Africa up." And the other guy was like, no. Like before the British came, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have hygiene, we didn't have rail, we didn't have cars, we didn't have education, we didn't have books.
Yep.
We had nothing. When they came, when the white people came in Africa, it was like these angels were coming and giving us all these things. I mean, electricity, you're like, whoa. Like, so it was so weird because I've never seen that perspective from an African man before. Like he was like fully grateful for those things to come to Africa. And the girl was taken back. She's like, oh, yeah, I haven't thought about that. Obviously, there's a lot of terrible things that happen as well. Like there's always terrible things in human history.
Absolutely.
Let's not forget about that. But just to hear such a powerful, empowering, loving thing from that African man, it was such a different perspective. It was such a nice change for once.
Look,
rather than like the evil white men who destroy everything. It was an interesting thing to think about.
No, because we were in South Africa when Mandela died, right?
Yeah.
And we had people that we knew, people that worked for us as well, that were older black South Africans. And then we had younger people that were related to them that we'd speak to and we met. And the older ones remembered where under the evil regime of apartheid, I want to be clear, it wasn't right.
Yeah.
And it was done horrendously.
Yeah.
But they remember that they could have schools to go to and hospitals that would treat them. And now it's all destroyed.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing
It's
works.
chaos.
Now it's chaos.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that what was there before was right, but what's happened since is worse.
Also, yeah. Bad.
And it's also bad and it's wrong.
Yeah.
And the same for Rhodesia. I mean, the place has gone to ruin.
Yeah, it's very sad what happened to Rhodesia. Because Rhodesia was one of the best
Yeah.
thriving communities in Africa.
My wife's family had tobacco farms and
Yeah.
everything, overnight, basically get out, leave the land, get off. The machines were abandoned, they weren't used. There wasn't a period where someone had the forethought to say, okay, white guys, teach the African people properly how to run this and run it with them and make it.
Yeah.
So everything was just lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen. I feel that all our institutions in Australia are under threat.
Yeah.
Right? Now, people worry about the government, which government's going to run Australia or South Australia. It doesn't really matter too much because the bureaucrats run most of Australia.
Yeah.
We could lose, everybody could die in Parliament, and I'm not wishing for anybody to pass away.
Yeah.
But I'm saying...
It's the furniture is what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
The furniture, the furniture of the people, the bureaucrats who are left there.
Everything
no matter
still
what
runs.
government happens, the furniture's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't be too worried. Be worried about who you're voting for, not for their popularity or good looks.
Yeah.
Be worried about what they're going to do that you're not getting today or have gotten ever.
Yeah.
Because someone said to me, it's interesting, the ad says, how could you, I'll paraphrase the ad saying, 4 more years of this, how could you not want that? And it's like, because as a senior accountant that works for a big company downtown here said, I'm yet to see materialize actually a physical benefit to me or my family from the last 4 years of the Labor government here. And I kind of tended to think that through, and I thought, you're right. People in their pockets are struggling still. And none of the projects, none of the things that are happening have helped them. And so for me, it's a discourse around prioritizing. We have to prioritize better because we can't just chase castles. Do you know what I mean? It's you can't, you've got to help the people. If you're meant to be here to help the people, you've got to help the people.
Yeah.
So you've got to build what needs to be built. It might not be glamorous and it might not make the best PR story, but you've got to build the stuff that people need now. Because what's the use of being elected otherwise?
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, our time is, should probably end this soon, but I'll just want to give you one last opportunity to kind of, share your intentions at Colton, like who you are, what you represent.
Yeah.
And what do you want for the people of Colton and, what do you want for the people of South Australia in general?
I think what I want for the people of South Australia is to have a life of tranquility and prosperity where we can all get on with each other, where we can send our kids to school and we know that our kids are going to be taught things that they need to learn about, the famous 3 R's, that we're not going to have our kids worried about learning stuff that's indoctrination that we don't want them to learn. I want to know that people can have more money in their pocket, that they can go out and enjoy their lives. Because ultimately, I feel that people have lost a lot in the last 5-6 years. They've lost a lot of their income, their prosperity, because things are so expensive. We don't even know if petrol's going to be here tomorrow. So I want government to focus on what they need to deliver and keep the lights on.
Yeah.
I want us to abandon crazy ideas of net zero because I think it's destroying us. I want us to be more practical. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm a nuts and bolts guy.
Yeah.
You know, I want those solid, maybe it's the Italian in me,
Yeah.
but I want concrete foundations.
Yeah.
I want rock solid.
Yeah.
And then I want to build on that. But
Yeah.
we need foundations that we don't have
Yeah.
because we've been doing the big spending.
Yeah.
And I'm not even against it because you're right.
Yeah.
But I think we just need to focus on a lot of rock solid foundation, whether it's with our children, our institutions, or whatever we're building.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. It's like the Italian Greek thing. We need the concrete, the water.
We saw, we concreted.
We got to water it. We got to water the concrete.
It's important.
It is very important. Well, thank you again so much
Thank
for
you,
being
George.
here.
Thanks for having
I hope you had a good time. It was a
Loved
fascinating chat, and I appreciate we got to know you better. And I hope the people of Colton get to know you a bit better. And good luck with the election coming up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.